So what I would like to do is first of all tell you a little about myself. As I said, I'm the academic director here in my school, and I manage a team of about 20 experienced teachers in Wimbledon. It's my job, or one of my jobs as the academic manager, to make sure that these teachers are motivated, they're stimulated, they're learning, they're contributing to the school, and they feel valued here in the school. And that's one of the parts of my job that I absolutely adore as an academic manager, and hopefully over the next hour I'll be able to share some of these things with you. Now, I came into ELT about, I can't even count, it was way back in the 80s, and I was a young, enthusiastic, unbearably annoying TEFL teacher. I started teaching in Egypt, and I knew nothing about CPD. I'd never heard of CPD, but I knew that I loved teaching, I loved my students, and I loved to see the progress that they made. And to think I had contributed in any small part to that was so rewarding. Hopefully now, 20 odd years on, I've managed to channel that enthusiasm rather than lose it, but make it work for me and for the team that I work with here in my school. So, and what I have learned, and hopefully this will come across throughout the webinar today, is that like learning, development is very individual, and it's important for us as academic managers to acknowledge that with our teaching team. So what I would like to look at is the following. These are the aims of the next hour or so. I'm just, Andy's let's try that. How's that? I've turned it off. No, I should be back now. Yep. So the aims of the webinar up on the screen: to outline ways of getting to know our staff and what motivates them, considering CPD options that are available to us, looking at matching the individual needs with the CPD options, considering successful goal setting, to identify some practical reflective tools, and to highlight the role of appraisal for staff. Now, these are a lot of aims to get through. Even if I talk very fast, we're still going to be scraping the surface. So I will pass on my email at the end of this webinar as well. And I'm happy to elaborate on any of these if anyone likes later on. So the first thing to think about really is, why is CPD important? And it's important for all of us, not just our teachers. We should be leading by example, of course. So interest and motivation, and I think this for me is a key one. As I said, I work with very experienced teachers, and they've been in the school for a long time, as have I, and it's my job to keep making sure that they're interested and challenged in their job. It's important that we stay current. There's a feel-good factor involved. When we're developing, when we feel as if we're achieving something, when we're passing that on to our students, when we're seeing results, it's positive, and that positivity is contagious, and that's only good for the school. We owe it to our students, we owe it to our colleagues, we owe it to our staff and to our schools, and that's an important thread that hopefully I will get across in the next hour, is that it's not just development for development's sake, but at the heart of this teacher development is the student. My idea is that CPD, done well, will lead to possible employment prospects and career advancement. And then hopefully with that would come possible financial gain. You may think I'm being a bit over-idealistic here, but you know, let's dream. And enhance the reputation of our profession. We're often known as just English teachers, just TEFL teachers, and I think showing the work that we do and the good that we do and sharing our results and our developmental progress as a profession can only be good overall. So that's why British Council a few years ago did a survey. They did a study across countries including Brazil, China, India, and this is something that I've lifted from that study a few years ago. CPD enriches teachers' professional lives. which in turn contributes to student learning and overall improvement in the quality of school systems. And I think that again is the important point there. It's about the students learning and the overall improvement in the quality of school systems. However, the development for the teachers, for the school, for us as academic managers, must be interesting, must be relevant, and must meet our needs and interests as well. So, moving on to the nitty-gritty of this, I think in order to individualise the developmental experience, we as academic managers need to start at the beginning, and that means starting at the recruitment stage. We need to make sure that we get the right teachers for our organisation. We need to know the ethos of our organisation and the values of the organisation in order to know if the teachers are correct for us. You might find a perfectly good teacher that is not a fit for your particular school, and I think that's important. So we're starting with recruitment, and as within a classroom situation, when we're working with students, the best lesson is not the one where we know nothing about our students. When we know our students, when we find out, when we do a needs analysis, when we do an initial assessment, when we find out the starting point, the interests of the students, we tailor our class towards that. We find out the background of the students. Those create the successful classes. And I think it's important at interview stage and beyond for that to exist as well when we're interviewing teachers. So, starting with recruitment. The interview should be our initial needs analysis. This is when we're finding out if this is the right fit and where there's room for development and if that development fits with the need of the school. It's our getting to know you meeting. Interviews, as we know, are a two-way process. The candidate, the teacher in this, they must know that they are also happy to work with us as a school. I think it's important each time we're recruiting to revisit our job description and our person specification. Is this the right job description at this time to get the right teacher to fit in to our team? And also adapt our interview questions and any tasks to incorporate elements of CPD. Now, many of you may do this already, and many of you may do this without even realising it, but I think it's important from the beginning to make it clear to teachers that are hoping to work with your school that this is a developmental school. There are developmental opportunities. They can learn, they can gain, they can enhance their careers. That's something that us as a school can give back to teachers and make the teachers feel valued. So, some examples of some interview questions that might probe a little into CPD, and you may have others as well. I'll just give you a second to read through these. So in the first couple of questions, what I believe here is we're looking for that passion that I think we want in our teachers, that desire to engage students, to enthuse students. Tell us about your teaching achievements, your teaching goals. Can they identify these? What have they achieved? Describe a lesson which you reflected on and learned something about your teaching. This, for an interviewer, gives us a very practical insight into the teaching style of the teacher. As I said, you may have others as well. So that's our recruitment stage, but then if the recruitment is successful, the teacher starts to work with us. Possibly for a few weeks, possibly a long-term contract. No matter how short or long a term the teacher is with us, I think it's important to invest in them. You're giving out the right message, you're giving something back if you can invest in that teacher's professional development. It also gives you an opportunity to get to know the teacher and to see if they're a good fit for the students. You're doing the good for the organisation as well. So at induction stage, because we would all have induction before the teacher starts, that might be face-to-face, it might be online, it might be a matter of reading, it might be a telephone induction, whatever, but I'm going to assume that there is some kind of induction here for our teachers when they join us. And at induction stage, this is another opportunity for the two people to get to know each other, the interviewer, in this case the academic manager, and the teacher. And I think at induction stage it's important to start addressing CPD needs. So at induction stage, and this is something that we trialled very, very carefully this summer with our short-term teachers. Agree on an initial CPD goal. A goal that is interesting for the teacher who's coming into your organisation. Relate this CPD goal to the discussion that you had in the interview. Make sure there's some continuity. Make sure it's relevant to your students and to your organisation. And that for me sounds so obvious, and I'm sure it sounds obvious to many of you. But when I was first an academic manager here at Wimbledon, I was focusing a lot on teacher development. Possibly sometimes at the expense of whether this was development that the students actually needed, if it was going to enhance their learning. And I think that's important to stress. Make this initial goal with your new teacher SMART, and we're going to look at that a little later. And keep it live. And what I mean by keeping a CPD goal alive, I'm going to talk about this throughout the session, is one of our main jobs as academic managers is to ensure that we guide a teacher through the developmental goals that they have set. We don't just set the goal and stand back and expect it to happen. Teachers wouldn't do that with their students. We shouldn't do that with our teaching team. And I think it's, in my experience, it's always very much appreciated when a teacher feels that their manager is working with them, praising them, guiding them through their goal, making it manageable for them. So I mentioned keeping your goals SMART, and I want to think about smarter goals. And again, this is not anything new, but it can be quite difficult to put into practice. But again, I would say, well, our job is a hard job. It's a challenging job, and these are one of the challenges, but they're also very rewarding for us as academic managers, helping our staff to set smarter goals and seeing them through. Now let me just put these up here. So we've got our SM. I'm sure you're all thinking and remembering what these are, what these SMART goals are. And then we've got an extra E and an extra R. So of course, we have specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. But this E, this is my favourite one. The goal should be enjoyable. We need to feel that we're doing something that is interesting for us. If not, then we will not achieve it. And then very importantly, the goal must be reflected upon. And again, I can't stress, even with a new teacher, the same as with a new student. Some of us only meet our students for 2 weeks, for example. Within that 2 weeks, we can get to know a student, we can get to know a teacher if it's a short-term contract. We can help them to set a goal that means that they leave the school at the end of their term feeling that they have gained something, and I think that's so important to give back to them. Of course, many of our teachers are also with us for a long time. Many of them are part-time, they dip into different schools, they talk about the different schools and the different organisations that they work with, and we want ours to be the one that is giving back the most. So smarter goals. Here's an example of a smarter goal. I'm going to lose 5 kilos in the next 2 months by cycling to the park twice a week. Now, I shall let you all into a secret. I had this smarter goal last year. I didn't achieve it, so it's going to be my new SMART goal again now that I see it up there on the screen. So is it specific? Yes. Is it measurable? 5 kilos in the next 2 weeks. It's achievable? Yes, why not? I've got a bike. Of course it's achievable. I can cycle. Is it realistic? Yes. Is it time-bound? Next 2 weeks. Is it enjoyable? If you enjoy cycling, and I do, and then to reflect upon it is the important part. To look back and think, well, is that enough? Or do I go and set myself a further goal? So that's my goal. I'm going to tie myself to that goal, and I will ask you to test me in that goal and see if I do achieve it this time. But I'm also going to give you a task, all of you, and I can see we now have 40 people here in the audience. 40 of you, I'm sure at least half of you are going to IATEFL in Glasgow next year. Your task? To set 2 smarter goals that you'd like to achieve by next April. These goals can be personal or professional. Let's keep it nice, let's keep it real for us. It doesn't need to be professional. If it's something in your personal life that you've really been thinking, I need to achieve that, make it a smarter goal now. Come up and tell me about it at IATEFL and put me on the spot. Did I achieve my goal? Find out. So our smarter goals then. So we've looked now very briefly at 2 different ways where we start to get to know our teachers, at the recruitment stage and at the induction stage. We're starting to set goals based on what we know about our teachers and what we know our school and our students need. But what other ways are there of getting to know our teachers? So ways to get to know our teachers and find out what motivates them. And for me, one of the most important here is the informal and active listening, being around. It's simple, we all know this, but sometimes, again as academic managers, it's about finding that time. And I think this is an important task in any academic manager's job, is to make sure that we're available for our teachers during break times, during lunch time, via email, via webcam, whatever, but we're available and they know that we're available. We're not hassling them, we're not pestering them for information about students. Did they get their test results? Have they marked their homework? We're there and we're listening to them. You don't announce this, it's subtle. We're just there, but we're actively, and this is a skill in itself, we're actively listening, and it's a bit, I think about it similarly to when we're teachers observing our students and monitoring our students. We're listening, but we need to notice and we need to use that information to feed it into the CPD plans of the school and make CPD an integral part of the school and individualistic for each and every person. Teacher feedback, what we hear formal and informal, gives us an insight. Student feedback, we find out a lot about our teachers from what the students say and how they say, so make sure that we're asking them, getting different forms of feedback. Again, regular meetings with teachers, short meetings, long meetings, all staff meetings. Again, through all of these, our job as an academic manager is to actively notice, store this information, to use and to act upon for the good of the CPD, of the teacher, and therefore the students. Structured classroom observation programme. And I just want to, at this point, highlight a difference here. Now, I think we need to make it clear to our teachers that, in my view, there are 2 different types of clear observation. We do our quality control observations where, as a manager, we will go in and we will assess whether the teacher is doing a good job and where to develop, because it is still developmental. All observations are developmental, and I'm sure you all agree with me, all observations are a privilege. And I say this to the teachers that I observe all the time. What a joy. And I even after 20 odd years of observing teachers, I still learn in every class something about teaching and learning. So I think there's the quality control observations, but there's also the developmental, the purely developmental observations. And when we're here talking about CPD, we need to make this distinction clear to our teachers. we're not calling it a developmental observation and then turning it into an assessed observation. The teacher needs to feel that this is a non-threatening time to explore, and we allow them that space to do that. And that then goes back to my recruitment process, because I think if we trust in our recruitment process, most observations should be purely developmental, because we've got the best teachers for the jobs. Professional development interviews or appraisals. Great formal way of getting to know our teachers and setting the goals. A full staff activity, of course, good way to see how people interact and how you interact with your team. And devising a mission statement or a self-evaluation form of the organisation across departments. This is also a very good way of getting an insight into your staff. And lastly, teacher contributions in general. What are they giving? Are they giving nothing? Why are they giving nothing? Why have you got an individual that's not contributing at all? Probe that. Is there some issue here that we can maybe solve, or to get more and to help our teachers at the end of the day? We do have a duty of care to their well-being. Getting to know our staff also tells us when a teacher is not in a place to have a developmental programme that's actively going ahead. Some teachers and some of us, we may just, and you may not all agree with me here, but I do think I work with long-term teachers. They have busy lives, they have family lives, they have things going on in their lives. Sometimes they don't want me coming up and saying, give me a smarter goal, let's set another smarter goal. They just need a break, they need time to just do their job well, and that's it. So we've got to know our staff, but we also need to know what's available for our staff. And at this point, I want to say, I think in my initial blurb about this webinar, I said it's not only about seminars, and it's not only about having a CPD calendar of seminars or workshops. There should be different opportunities for different members of staff to develop in a meaningful way. However, that's not to say you don't have a calendar of seminars or workshops. But these seminars must be achievable for your members of staff. They must be at a time that's suitable for all. They must be relevant. You, from your experience of getting to know your staff, getting to know your students, classroom observations, appraisals, you will choose the best calendar of seminars for your teaching team. Now you may involve them. We here at Wimbledon, we have a CPD working group, and once a year we all meet together to decide on what overall path we want to go on with CPD in the school for the following year. And that works well. The involvement of the teachers, let them know that they are leading this, but you're using your expertise and what you've learned about the school and about the students as well as the teachers. So, CPD opportunities. I'm just going to let you have a look at these for a couple of minutes because there are many listed here, opportunities for CPD. Now, of course, I don't have time in this short session to talk through the details of all of these different CPD opportunities, and many of them, again, you'll be familiar with. You'll be familiar with them, but the task, I think, for busy academic managers, including myself, is making sure that we're utilising these opportunities and they're actively taking place within your school and with the teachers that are interested. I want to just pull out a couple here. So I mentioned your in-house CPD sessions. But I make reference here to peer observation, pop-in observation, and self-observation. And these are all developmental observations. So there should be no question of assessment by the manager. They should be non-threatening. They should be a place for teachers to be able to experiment and acknowledge their own professional development. However, I think our job as manager is to allow the teacher the space to see these through in a meaningful way. So for example, saying that we have a peer observation system in school and people can arrange to see each other when they have a free afternoon, in my experience does not work. Our job is to set it up, to make sure that we see it through. I would not ask, and again there's a lot of talk around peer observation, and we could be here all day talking about the benefits of peer observation. The particular system that we have in school is that I will arrange for the two teachers to be free to observe and to have a pre-observation meeting and a post-observation meeting. It's not my place to know how this went. I want to know that they have followed guidelines, they know what they're looking for, they've got a focus, they're reflecting upon their peer observation. But I need to be the person to put it in the diary, to put it in place, to make sure it happens. This is the same with self-observation. Self-observation, we often talk about blind observation, unobserved observation. It's a fabulous tool for reflection. Again, it will not happen with all the will in the world. It will not happen of its own accord. Teachers will like the idea of self-observation, but unless we help the teacher to implement it, it will not be carried out, in my experience. Self-observation basically means, for those of you who are not sure, that the teacher would be asked, maybe that they're looking to develop their pronunciation techniques in high-level classes, let's say. So they would work with their manager, with possibly a mentor, with a peer, and they would do some research. They would design a full lesson plan. They then go in and deliver the lesson, but they're not being observed. They come out and they have a meeting with their peer, with their mentor, with their manager to talk through and reflect on how the lesson went compared to their expectations of it. And from there, they then decide what future progress and goals to set. Action research I'm going to talk about in a little while. Anything else, as I said, there's a lot of information there, so please do email me later if you want me to elaborate on any of them. So, we've now looked at ways of getting to know our staff, and we've looked at the CPD opportunities. Our job, and it's not rocket science, is to match the two. To match the teacher to the project, to the CPD opportunity. It's what we do with students as teachers all the time. And again, I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, are doing this most of the time. But it's something that I find I actively need to keep making sure that I'm on top of. Matching the teacher to the CPD opportunity, checking that it's right, set dates, and this is again what I'm talking about with peer observation, self-observations. Set dates to guide your teachers, break down their goals into manageable chunks, make it as stress-free as possible. We're talking about learning, we're talking about development. It should be enjoyable. Our teachers and ourselves, when we're addressing our own CPD, we should be enjoying the achievements. We should be recognising them and feeling good and wanting to engage in more. So make these as stress-free for your teachers as possible. Break down the tasks. Setting a goal or allowing a teacher to set a goal of, I'm going to do more interactive whiteboard work in my classroom is not a goal. It's not smart, it's not meaningful. Break this down into something that will be useful and achievable for your students and for your teacher. Monitor the success with the person you're working with, and also measure the success and share this with your staff. Again, measuring the success of CPD, it is a whole other thing that unfortunately we don't have time to go into in detail. But there should be some measurement, there should be some measurable way of saying, I have achieved this goal to this extent, and these are the outcomes. I'm seeing this in my student feedback, I'm seeing it in exam results. Something that makes us feel that we have given, we've taken our organisation, we've taken our students up a level. Share it with staff. It's amazing for our staff rooms. The feel-good factor again that is created. So, what I'm stressing here is do it as an academic manager and do it well. Don't let this slip. We have academic tasks all the time. Every single day we're trying to juggle 100 things. We're doing many different admin things. We're dealing with people. We're managing huge numbers of people, many of us as well. But if we break these tasks of matching our teachers and our CPD opportunities and helping them to achieve their goals, if we break this for ourselves into manageable tasks, it will become an integral part of the school. And again, you're building a developing school, and that is recognised outside and inside. So I want to think a little about reflection. And we've kind of touched upon this. And with reflection, with reflective practice, we all do it. In 25 minutes, I shall shut down my computer and I'll go away and I'll think, how was that? What could I have done better? What was not so good? We all reflect. But it is important to have structure to our reflection. But before I come to the structure, I want to think about just the opportunities. So the first one is the developmental observations for teachers. Again, to stress, make sure that teachers feel comfortable that it's a place to experiment and then a place to reflect in the developmental observation. Through journals. And again, teachers, in my experience, when I work with teachers in appraisals, many of them say, I want to do more reflective practice. I want to focus more on that. I'm going to write a journal. And then the next year comes and no journal has happened. What I would suggest is trying to think of a way to get your staff to engage in something like this, possibly for a short period of time. At a CPD working group that you might decide to have, I suggest that some people get together and make it a goal that they work as peers. They don't do peer observations, they keep peer journals, for example, over the period of a month. The month of January. Everyone here in London, I know you're all over the world, but certainly here in London, January is miserable. And this is a great time to address CPD. Get that feel-good factor, get people learning and exploring in January. So teaming up a team of teachers, looking at their journals together. Peer groups. People will automatically fall into peer groups, but try and mix them up a little. Give them tasks to do in peer groups in order to encourage reflection and idea sharing. And then, of course, action research, which is talked a lot about, and I'm going to look at the stages of action research shortly. Before I come to action research, because it's a big project, action research, I'm going to look at something that's maybe a bit more manageable for all staff. And that's looking at bite-sized reflection. Oops. Now, before I get to that, encouraging reflection, I did say there must be structure, and the structure is here. So in any reflective procedure, you should have 4 basic stages. There should be a focus. So if we imagine peer observation, for example, you should be going in to observe your peer partner with a focus. What are you looking for? What's your developmental goal? You observe or you participate if it's a journal or if it's action research. You reflect, easy enough. You set goals, a little more difficult, as long as if you make them smart. The part that people forget to do is to implement and evaluate. Again, as a manager, that's our job to make sure all 4 stages are covered in a stress-free and manageable way. So, as I said, I want to move on to bite-sized reflection. And this is something that we've found with some of our teachers here works very well. Bite-sized reflection is about channeling what we do every single day, every single lesson as teachers in reflecting how a lesson has gone. And our stages are up here. So in our lesson plan template for teachers, and you need to get teachers on board. We want teachers to feel that this is something that could be enjoyable for them, to meet a goal to address the CPD. So in your normal lesson plan template, revisit it and create a space for teachers to make notes and questions to themselves, so that during a period of time when a teacher is teaching a lesson, they use this lesson plan template and they make notes on things that have surprised them, things they weren't expecting, things they want to go away and think about, and they also write questions. Why did that student do that? Why has this happened like this? And then what I'm suggesting here, but you can have your own plan completely, is for on a daily basis for possibly a week. I mean, obviously we're not going to manage this year round. Let's give it a time of a week. Reflect, the teachers reflect on their notes. They can do this by themselves, or what works well is when we're sharing this with a peer, with a colleague, with a manager in a non-threatening way. Looking at the notes that we've made, what did we mean by those notes? Trying to explore and think about. And what we're really doing here is we're reflecting, but in a focused way. Revisit our notes at the end of the week and see what conclusions we can make. How can we act upon these conclusions? Set a goal to act upon them, put it into practice, and delve in and experiment a little more in the following week. Measure our success, involve our students, get feedback. Students love being involved in this kind of thing. And then finally, share your experience of this bite-sized reflective practice with your colleagues. Again, in my experience, the staff room is abuzz with something like this, even if it's 2 or 3 people doing this for a short period of time. So that's bite-sized reflection that I'm suggesting. And again, I know this is a very quick overview, so if anyone does want to explore this with me a little more, please feel free to get in touch later on. And then I did mention action research. I have here the stages of a typical action research project. I'm not going to talk through these because we are limited to time. What I would say is action research is not suited to every single teacher. For example, a new and inexperienced teacher may not be able to see through such a big project. You need quite an amount of time to do it. It needs careful guidance and certainly agreement from the teacher. The teacher must embrace something like this. And there must be an end goal, and an end goal that's a reward. So there's a starting point, there are various manageable stages, guided with the help of the manager, and there's an end result, which could possibly be something like presenting the outcomes at IATEFL, for example. So that's action research. Now, we've looked at getting to know our teachers, we've looked at trying to channel that to match our teachers. One way of really pulling all of this together is through our appraisal. And again, just a very quick overview of appraisal. I think it's important with appraisal to say, first of all, appraisal is often done once a year. If we can do them more regularly, fabulous. However, due to time restraints, size of teaching teams, it's not always possible. And for that reason, meetings, communication should be going on throughout the year, not just at appraisal stage. At the appraisal stage, there should be no surprises. Now, of course, appraisal is also a place for performance management discussions, etc. But I believe that the appraisal for teacher and manager should be a developmental reflection and a way to move that development forward. Again, for the good of the teacher, the good of the student, and the good of the school. So, the role of appraisal as I see it. And I see 3 main things here. In our school, we call them professional development interviews. And I think the first thing is to have a discussion, a communication with the teacher to reflect on what has been achieved or learned in the last 12 months, 6 months, and its relevance to or impact on the school. And this is a time for the teacher to focus and reflect and to share. The majority of the speaking should be being done by the teacher. To establish what areas of development to pursue in the coming 12 months. And this again is a time for the manager to make it clear what might be an option for the teacher, things that they may not have thought about. We may know that we can facilitate something that the teacher hasn't thought about. And also to agree on clear goals and a plan on how to achieve the goals and measure their impact. So, So far, what have we done? Just to recap, if you have a look here. So, whirlwind session here. So far I've covered why develop, why CPD, the importance of getting to know our staff, starting at recruitment stage, meaningful CPD goals, SMART goals, CPD options that are available, the importance of reflection, some reflective tools, a quick action research model, and also a model of bite-sized action research, and the role of appraisal in learning and development. I'd like you just to start thinking now what's relevant to you in your work environment. We're all, and again I can see there are 40-something people online with me, which is fabulous. All I can hear is the sound of my own voice, but it's fabulous to be talking to you all. You're all working in very different environments. What here is relevant to you is what I'm asking you to reflect upon. And if something that I've said isn't automatically relevant to you, how might you adapt it? How could you implement this into your working environment? And then also not to forget our own CPD. I think it's so important to lead by example. If we are sitting still, our teachers will sit still. We should always be showing that we are addressing our own CPD. So, structure, and I'm sure you're getting this feeling as you listen to me. You know, we're talking about getting to know staff. I'm sure you're getting to know me just in this hour, and knowing that one of the things that I feel quite passionately about is the ability to be able to help our colleagues and to help the teams that we manage in a structured and focused way to meet the developmental goals. And I think that's the big thing of the manager's role. We shouldn't just pay lip service to this. We must respect our staff and we must lead by example. We must give them the time and the space and the opportunity, and then set small goals with them in order to achieve their bigger goal. So providing structure and clear guidance, we should be encouraging throughout, but make it meaningful encouragement, not just, oh, well done for doing that. Make it meaningful. Make it as stress-free as possible. We all lead stressful working lives. Teachers are very stressed with all the paperwork, the workload, all the students that they're dealing with. We don't want to add to that. We want to be removing some of that by making this enjoyable for them. Raising awareness, it's our job to raise awareness of the CPD achievements. What have the results been? And hopefully the results you will see organisation-wide as well, when done successfully and over time. Demonstrate this, flag it up. Share this with your team. Share it with other departments, the achievements, the CPD achievements, the projects that teachers are working with. Very often this happens behind closed doors. Does your marketing team know? Does your finance team know what teachers are working on at the moment? Tell people outside what they're achieving. They're not just in the classroom doing a job, challenging as it is, but they are moving themselves forward all the time. Finally here, addressing CPD should not be an add-on task for managers. It should be something that we break down, that we are addressing every single day. We shouldn't just be number crunching, doing our timetable, checking on absent students. We must be addressing this for each and every one of our staff members. And how do we give this focus? How do we give it structure? I don't know if any of you attended last week the British Council Online CPD conference. Absolutely amazing stuff, and you may have heard reference to the British Council framework for CPD. This is a wonderful tool to use with your teachers. Again, we don't have the time to look at the different ways, but getting your teachers involved, seeing there's something objective there where they can measure their development, the stages that they're at, and where they can move forward and how they can move forward. It takes away a lot of the stress for the manager when we have frameworks such as this. If you look at English Agenda, British Council, you will find a lot there. There's a handbook for managers, handbook for teachers, the framework that I mentioned, and also a portal with video clips, webinars. Fabulous, fabulous place. So, coming to the end, to conclude, something that Richard Branson said. I chose not to put a photo of him there. Some people love him, some people don't. But what he said was, clients don't come first, employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they'll take care of the clients. And I think, going back to our initial encouraging teachers to take charge of their own CPD, giving them that opportunity and allowing facilitation of their development, knowing that your teachers are getting something from the organisation they work with. It's a perk. They're not just coming to school, delivering a lesson and leaving. They feel part of an organisation. You could argue that it's not as expensive as other means of reward, but it is so rewarding for the school, for the students, and again, most of all, for the teachers who feel a very valued member of staff. So, to conclude, feed into your students, feed into your teachers, keep encouraging development, and you will have a happy and learning environment to work with. I'd like to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. I'm sure that you've got lots of questions now. I can see some questions in. I've got my email up on the screen here. This has been recorded, and if you do have any questions, as I said, or would like me to elaborate, then please do feel free to email me anytime. Let me just see. Andy's just saying there's a good question from Stefan. Let me just see if I could go back and see where that is, Stefan. Andy, would you be able to type in the question again, or Stefan type in the question? I'm not seeing it here in the list of comments. Here we go. So, in my context, managers are not aware of or not interested in CPD. How can teachers interested in CPD encouraging their managers to initiate CPD? That's an excellent question, Stefan. And again, it's quite difficult to address in such a short amount of time. I think that's where I would suggest that the teacher goes to something like the British Council framework and takes it upon themselves to set their own goals and to work on their own CPD. Feeding that into the managers, I think it's about bringing to their attention in small bite-sized bits again the importance, the value, the difference. If you can measure the value that you addressing your CPD has given, then with time that should make a difference and should filter up to the managers. But that's a very short answer in a nutshell, because I think there's a whole other area here on management and CPD for managers and how to work on their own CPD as well. Are there any other questions here? How can we make teachers interested in CPD? Yes, in company classes, teachers going from company. And again, Analia, I completely appreciate that kind of situation. I think something there where you've got teachers going out to all different companies, CPD can be a way of bringing people together. It can be a way of building relationships. There must be some flexibility within the organisation to provide some area for that, where it could possibly be an hour's paid time per month to bring everyone together and address CPD in various ways from there. Again, short, bite-sized meetings with your staff and raising awareness. Raising awareness, I mean, in other talks that I've done in the past, it's first of all about addressing the achievements that people have made, because every single day in a teacher's life they are achieving things, and it's about addressing that and seeing that CPD doesn't need to be big. It's small and every day. I can see Masood. We sometimes take over the role of the academic director, yes. By the time we start, there's been some recruitment. Yes, very good point. Of course, this is past the recruitment phase. And I completely agree here. I mean, that you have teachers in your team that are yours, and you have teachers in your team that you have inherited. And I think if your work is working to encompass all of the teachers, but the teachers that you have recruited, if they are setting goals and achieving goals that have a knock-on effect on the ones that you've inherited, again, positivity is contagious, and positive development is contagious. And with time, and this takes time, you know, don't get me wrong, I came to this school 16 years ago with a team of teachers that had been here for many years. It takes time, but chipping away at it, not giving up and staying positive, I think, is the key here. Yes, Mike here is saying a bit more about working with experienced teachers who don't see CPD as being relevant for them and are not interested in peer observations. Do you know, Mike, what I would maybe suggest here, and something that I didn't mention, I only said a one-liner about it, is getting an all-staff project to address what the values and ethos of the school are. We have a set of values here, and most schools have a mission statement and a set of values. But that's the easy part. The difficult part is getting everyone involved, everyone agreeing on the values and making those values work. And within that, one of the values should be that everyone must then comply with is that professional development is taken seriously by all members of staff. Oh, now I can see Andy saying we should now, I think, be coming to the end of our time. There are loads to say. I would love to sit here all day, actually. It's such a pleasure to be talking about these and stimulating, getting all these stimulating questions. Do please email me if you want to pursue this any further. I think it's time for me to say thank you very much to everyone for attending. I appreciate you giving up the time for an hour in a busy day, and I hope to see you in IATEFL to hear your smart